to Cisfunctional.
Yay, our first episode.
Here's the explanation of our name.
Oh yeah.
We should do that so people don't think we're just weird.
Yeah.
Well, we are. We are sisters. She's my older sister, and we liked the name because our brains are very dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So.
Also, maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Hey, I'm Laurel.
And I'm Lane. And we also have Piper here with us.
Hi.
Who will be joining probably most of the podcasts, but,
A lot of them she won't be in the video.
Yeah. Eventually we're going to start doing makeup along with our stories, but today, of course, with it being our first one, we're going to focus on the story and get to know how we want to do things. We're going to be doing primarily true crime for those of you just listening, and we'll be doing a little bit of everything for those of you watching and listening, so true crime, tarot, pendulums, maybe some Ouija board stuff, we'll see.
Ooh, we
we'll
could
see.
probably do spells, too.
We could do spells. So you get a little bit of everything with us. We'll tell you at the beginning of each one what we're doing. We're going to be working our podcast a little bit like murder mystery, so you guys are going to have to guess up until the end when I reveal the murderer or not.
So yeah,
who knows?
She is the only one that knows anything about this. I had to force her not to tell me anything.
It's so hard. I want to talk about it. So today we're going to travel all the way back to December of 1964. Beverly Jarosz and her sister Carol were on Christmas vacation. It was really wet and cold this time of year in Ohio, and we're going to be looking at Garfield Heights specifically. There was actually flooding in the state because of how much rain they had that year, so that was sad, like torrential downpours, big floods. So as if that wasn't depressing enough, then of course there was a murder. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
This is my cat. Her name is Kai Kai, and she's beautiful.
For those of you listening that want to see the cat, you should check out YouTube.
Ooh.
Anyway. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of background on Beverly. She's going to be our victim today. So she lived in Garfield Heights, again, with her sister Carol, her mom Eleanor, and her dad Ted. His real name was Thaddeus, but he goes by Ted.
I wouldn't go by Thaddeus.
Theodore.
Yeah, when I was writing this up, I several times had to change it from, like, Tad to Ted because it wasn't meshing in my brain well. So Garfield Heights was a really tight-knit, small town. Everybody knew everybody kind of feel. The houses were all very, very similar looking, very close together. Beverly was known to be smart, kind, hardworking. She went to school at Marymount High School, which was an all-girls Catholic school at this time. She strived to become a Latin teacher. She volunteered at Marymount Hospital. So she loved kids, she loved people, and was always trying to help. She also really loved poetry. She loved Shakespeare. She used to quote Shakespeare as a child, so that's kind of fun. And for Christmas, her dad had bought her like a leather journal so she could write all of her poetry down in one spot. She had like a diary too, and so she would keep poems in there, but he wanted her to have a special place she could keep all of her stuff to one day be published. Some of her most recent poetry actually included stuff kind of indicating that she was talking like about her own death, which was kind of interesting.
Oh.
So Beverly, not only was she smite. I mean that too. Not only was she smart and kind, but she was incredibly gorgeous. She had lots of suitors. I'm going to tell you about a few of them now. So you might want to keep some of these in mind as we go through our story today. So we had a few suitors. The first one was Roger McNamara, was the boyfriend at the time. We had Daniel Schulte, who was her ex-boyfriend, and actually, coincidentally, one of her best friend's cousins. And we'll talk a little bit more about that best friend here as we go. We had Larry Young, who Beverly had dated for a little bit, but ultimately she broke up with him. And that actually really kind of pissed his mother off. She was not very happy with Beverly for breaking her son's heart.
Get over it. Sorry.
We had Stanley Klanowski, who was actually another cousin of a different best friend. So we have Barbara and Margie are both going to be the two best friends. And so Daniel was Margie's cousin. and Stanley was Barbara's cousin. And Beverly and Barbara talked about Stanley like he was kind of just misunderstood, troubled, kind of disturbed. He was just, he kind of had a rough childhood, it sounded like.
Okay.
We have Bruce. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, or I will. Maybe Bilek or Bilek.
I'm trying
You
not to read
can't.
anything
Yeah, you
else.
can't look. It's fine.
Okay. Bruce.
So we have Bruce. He was a 21-year-old who lived right behind the Jarosz' home. Beverly actually once wrote Margie a letter saying that Bruce had gone to her home, and his reasoning for showing up at her door was he wanted to see what she looked like naked. There's not, we don't hear much about Bruce, so that was kind of interesting that he just popped up for that and wasn't really around. We have John Palian, but John is our next one. He was a 19-year-old who lived 2 doors down from the Jarosz'. He had actually admitted to watching Beverly whenever she sunbathed in the backyard.
Who's this? Sorry?
John.
I'm...
So yeah, we had some interesting suitors, interesting neighbors, just some that are kind of worth noting. But now I'm going to kind of jump into the story a little bit. So we're looking at the summer of 1964. Beverly started getting calls coming into the home. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys know what like a party line is? They used to have like home. Okay, tell us, just in case our listeners and Piper might not know. Apparently,
it's so back in the day when they had landlines. The neighbors and everybody used to be on the same line, so when one neighbor wanted to call, they might not be able to because the other neighbor might already be on the phone.
Okay. Yep. So funny thing is, like when you would pick up the phone, you had to check to see if anybody else is on there, right? And so while you're talking to your friends or your boyfriend or whoever else you might be talking to, you're here like click, click. And like some people could even just listen in on your conversations whenever they wanted to. Just, yeah, kind of weird. So they had a party line, and this caller would call and then just hang up. Like, they never said anything. They would do this sometimes up to 10 or 12 times a day.
I would throw my phone against the wall.
Wait, do we know who that is?
No.
It's just a caller. And we'll get more into this, but it was kind of said that she had, like, a secret admirer. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit next. But the hang-up calls went on for a few months and then just stopped. Out of nowhere, they just quit. Right about... September-ish, I think is kind of the timeline. It would be roughly September, October, when those calls just kind of quit. So speaking of Beverly's secret admirer, she had received mysterious gifts to her home. One of them was a package left on the back step, or not, maybe not so much a package, but it was a silver bracelet and a ring, and just with a note that said, "To Bev." That's it. To Bev. No indication of who sent it. We don't know anything. It just was on the back porch, which is noteworthy because they actually didn't really use their back door, because on their house, they had 3 doors. They had the front door, a side door, and a back door. Each of these doors, so they had like the actual door, and then they had a storm door, right? Like kind of like a screen door, but the storm door that covered each door. And the side door and the front door were used, but the back door wasn't, because it was like it was at their dining room, and so their table was like up against this back door. So it was never used, and this is kind of where those packages were left. So that was kind of strange. Then she also found some costume jewelry that was placed inside their mailbox with no note, nothing like that, but just jewelry that was left for her. So there is also a source that I looked at that said that at one point in time, Dad had come home and saw a man standing, so their window faced the front yard. And so there was a man standing beneath their window, just like looking up from the front yard. And he tried to chase him down. He tried to catch him, but got a couple blocks down and couldn't catch up to him. So he got away. They have no idea who that was. There was also an instance where Beverly went to the museum, and there was this angry-looking, tall, thin man that was like mean-mugging her through the museum. And this wasn't just noted by Beverly, this was also noted by the museum security. So
it was bad.
Yeah, so she was gorgeous. Like, she caught the eyes of everybody, but everybody means maybe not such great people too, apparently. Beverly was always really friendly, but with the secret admirer, the stalker type situations, she became really scared. Naturally. She started carrying around a letter opener when she was alone. She would shut and lock all of the doors, front, side, back, all of them. And that includes like the storm door and the wood door. She locked everything down. And she would always look out the window before opening a door to anybody. So she had to make sure she knew the person standing at the door before she ever even unlocked it. She was very careful.
That's just good practice.
Yeah, and she always called, like, if she went from place to place, she was calling somebody to let them know I made it to where I was going, or here's where I am, or whatever, because she was terrified of this secret admirer, this stalker.
Smart.
So, on December 27th, so a couple days after Christmas, Beverly's parents hosted a party at their house. Beverly's boyfriend at the time, Roger, he showed up at this party to hang out with Beverly. At some point during the evening, they decided to take a drive together, came back to the house, and Roger left later that evening. This would be the last time Roger would see Beverly alive.
Boo.
Yeah. So on the morning of December 28th, and this is the day of the crime, it was a wintry mix of rain and snow. It was very cold outside. And this family always sat down to breakfast together. Like, this was a weekday for the parents. They had to go to work, and they still made sure to sit down as a family. They had breakfast. And actually, Beverly's mom, though she never told anybody, had an awful feeling that morning. Like, she was terrified for Beverly, and she didn't know why. But she had a gut feeling of something's not right.
Yeah.
But thinking that she was just overreacting or being crazy or whatever, I mean, they had a lot going on, she decided she was just going to keep it to herself. So Mom and Dad, Eleanor and Ted, went off to work as normal. They left about 10 o'clock. And the plan was for Beverly and her sister to go to Grandma's house. And they were going to spend the morning with Grandma. So before they headed over... Oh, and I'm sorry. Grandma's name was Marie Vanek. And she lived really close. They all kind of lived in the same neighborhood. Like I mentioned, it's a very small town. They all just kind of lived very close quarters to each other. So she lived just down the street. But before they left, Beverly and Carol had called Grandma to see, like, is there anything you need? Beverly would set her grandma's hair up in rollers every day for her.
Aww,
like, she was just a sweetheart. So she called Grandma, and Grandma was like, actually, yeah, I need you to stop and get me a hairnet, and we need a fresh loaf of bread. And so Beverly and Carol, they left the house around 10:30 to complete those errands. And a neighbor of Beverly and Carol had a canary that had just passed away. Because she was sitting at her window just, like, watching the neighborhood because her bird had passed. And so she was, like, watching the wildlife outside.
Let me have it.
So it's important because she realized that the girls were leaving. Like, she confirmed this timestamp. So they left the house 10:30 about. They arrived to Grandma's between 11 and 11:30 somewhere. About that time, Beverly called her friend when she got to Grandma's. She called Barbara. And they were making plans to go shopping that afternoon. So the plan was for Barbara to meet Beverly at her house between about 1 and 1:30. And then the two would head over to Margie's house between 1:30 and 2. And then they would all go shopping together. To give you a little bit of background, Beverly was kind of the glue of these friendships. Like, Margie and Barbara weren't super close to each other, but they were close to Beverly, and she kind of brought them all together. So that's kind of how we end up where we're at. So around noon, Grandma had made ham sandwiches for herself, Carol, and Beverly. They chatted about the new year that was coming up. And then after lunch, Carol headed to the kitchen to go clean up the dishes. Beverly said goodbye to Grandma about 12:15 to head home to get ready for shopping, and never got to say goodbye to her sister. So that was kind of heartbreaking for me because this would be the last time she'll see her sister alive.
Please don't talk about that.
So with Beverly heading home around 12:15 or so, she was trying to go home to get ready to go shopping with her friends.
Right.
She had a couple of things she needed to get done. And there's mixed stories again about how she ended up getting a ride home. But the big picture is she ended up getting a ride. Some people say she went out to the bus stop and the neighbor saw her. The neighbor had a son. His name was James. And one story says, well, the neighbor saw her standing at the bus stop and was like, James, give her a ride home. Like, don't let her take the bus.
Right.
You can just drive her. It'll be quicker. The other story is that Beverly's grandma called the neighbor and asked if the son would give her a ride. Now, James was just getting home from a job interview. So he ran, got changed, went out, gave Beverly a ride home. They get to Beverly's house. I don't know. I think he said leaving and coming back took about 15 minutes, so he probably dropped her off somewhere around 12:30ish. And being the gentleman that James was, he sat and watched to make sure Beverly got inside. He said she went in through the side door, shut the door behind her, and everything seemed normal. So James headed home for lunch. Went to go have lunch with his mom, I think it was.
Okay.
So again, he was only gone about 15 minutes total. So back to Beverly. When she gets home, she lays her purse down in the kitchen, hangs her cone. Lord help me. Hangs her coat on the banister at the bottom of the stairs and turns on some classical music. She loved like classical music, jazz. And usually she played it pretty softly. It was never really loud by any means. And to be completely specific, she was listening to WCLV Cleveland, which was a radio station at the time. I don't know if it still is or not, but... So at about 12:30, the home phone rings. Beverly answers it. And this first call was just the local jeweler telling her they couldn't fix Grandma's necklace. I don't know what was wrong with it. We couldn't really find much on that, but Grandma's necklace was broken. It wasn't going to be fixed. So about 15 minutes later, Beverly calls her mom, who was on lunch at work, tells her the necklace can't be fixed. And her mom could hear the classical music playing in the background. Again, very softly, but she could hear it. Beverly told her mom about her plans, but Mom was just about to be off lunch break because we're closing in on 1 o'clock now. And so she kind of hurried Beverly off the phone. Like, gotta get back to work, have fun at your shopping, whatever. About 1:15, the phone rings again. Poor Beverly cannot get ready to go shopping because all she does is talk on the phone to these people that won't stop calling her, apparently. This time, it was a man asking for Ted. So she is like, well, Dad's not home. He's at work. Can I take a message? And the caller says, it's Steve Stankowitz. I'll call back later. So she writes this down and underlines the words called and later. Leaves the note by the phone. It's worth noting that detectives or whatever the handwriting specialists are, I can't remember what they're called, but they say that it seems like she wrote this like in a rush or in a panic, but it said that like she's got 15 minutes before her friend's supposed to be there at the latest. She's trying to get ready to go. Right. The phone keeps ringing. She's been on the phone the whole time, so she's in a hurry. So take from that what you will, but around 1:30, Beverly's grandma calls back to check on her, make sure she made it home safe. Beverly answers the phone, but again, she's in a little bit of a hurry. She still needs to get ready. She needs to change her clothes. And Grandma swears that she heard her say, I can't talk now, Grandma. Barbara's here. Like, she's at the door. I gotta go. So Grandma hangs up with her thinking, great, she's on her way to go shopping. No big deal. So Barbara, again, was supposed to be coming to Beverly's house. So there's, again, mixed stories of whether Barbara walked to Beverly's house. One of them said her mom dropped her off kind of, again, in a rush. I don't know if she was heading to work or what, but she dropped Barbara off and then leaves. But regardless of which story is true, Barbara arrives at Beverly's. She was actually a few minutes late. It wasn't quite 1:30, or it wasn't as early as 1:30. It was a little bit later. Notice the storm door on the side of the house was locked, but the wooden door was actually open now. It wasn't shut like Beverly keeps it. It was open.
Okay.
So she could actually hear the music coming from the house. She says that it was blaring. This music was so loud. She rings the doorbell, knocks on the side door, goes around to the front, knocks on the front door, rings the doorbell, no answer anywhere. So she kind of sat around for a few minutes. She's trying to get Beverly's attention, hoping that eventually Beverly will just come to the door. But she couldn't ever get her attention. Nothing ever happened. And then she hears a loud thud. And she said it sounds, quote, like someone knocking over a dresser, end quote. So she assumes at this point that Beverly's either playing a prank on her or she's mad because Barbara was late to show up to the house. So she...
Prank?
Yeah, well, I think that she was like, oh, she's trying to make me think she's not home or whatever because she was late. And then she heard the thud. And so she was like, well, she's obviously in there.
Right.
So she's either mad at me or something. So she starts walking home. And eventually, just a few blocks away from the house, she comes up to what I understood to be kind of like a gas station. And she's picked up by Gary Grayson, who was about a year older than Beverly and Barbara. So he picks her up, and they arrive back to Barbara's house around 2 o'clock. She starts calling Beverly, kind of in a panic, like, why, are you there? What's going on? Why didn't you answer the door? Is everything okay? Calls her several times, no answer. Can't get her on the phone. So then Margie calls Barbara, and she's like, you guys were supposed to be here already. What's going on? Why haven't you shown up?
Right.
So Barbara kind of relays the story over to her, explaining like, oh, I think Beverly's mad at me. She never came to the door. She's not answering my phone calls. Margie immediately thinks, that's not like her. Something is wrong. I'm calling Grandma. Somebody needs to go check on Beverly, make sure she's okay. So she calls Grandma, explains to her what happened at the house with Barbara. She asks Grandma to go check on her. And when Margie explained to Marie what happened to Barbara at the house with Beverly, Grandma says immediately, she's dead. Hangs up on Margie.
I just got the chills.
Yep. And Carol is still there at Grandma's house. So Carol hears Grandma, and Carol, like, recently has done interviews that says, like, yeah, that's what she remembers, is Grandma on the phone saying she's dead, and then she hangs up. Takes Carol over to the neighbor's house with James and his mother, and Marie is like, I have to call her dad, and I'm going to go help. So she calls Ted, tells him what happened. You need to leave work. You need to go check, you need to go check on your daughter, see what's going on. So Dad rushes home. By the time he gets home, it's about 4:15, 4:20. So we've had a couple of hours at this point pass since Barbara was at the house. Again, he could hear the loud music coming from inside. Noticed at this point that the back and side storm doors were unlocked and both doors were open. Again, the back door is not used. There's a dining table right there. So the fact that the back door was open to him was an immediate red flag. He said that there didn't appear to be any forced entry. There was nothing out of the ordinary on that first floor. Everything looked fine, other than, of course, the loud music was kind of strange. Not like Beverly, but... So he continues upstairs to go check to see if she's in her bedroom and finds Beverly dead. He touched Beverly's lower back to see, like, is she breathing? Is she cold? Is she warm? What is the situation? And she's already cold. Cold to the touch. So he calls the police, calls Marie, who is Eleanor's mom, so his mother-in-law. And all he could muster up was the words, murder, murder, murder. He couldn't get anything else out. So again, Grandma at that point is like, Carol's got to go to the neighbor's house. I'm going to find out what's going on.
Can I pause real quick?
Yes.
What is his relationship? Like, how's their relationship?
Dad and daughter?
Yeah.
From all accounts, this family was a normal family. They were very close. Like, that sit down at breakfast every day together they were close. They had a great family life, from all accounts that I could find.
So there was, like, no tension between anyone at this time?
Not in the family, no.
Okay,
and, I mean, the family's pretty much accounted for. Mom's been at work all day. Dad clocks in and out. Like, their stories are fine. Carol was with Grandma all day, and vice versa. James and the neighbor are pretty well accounted for by Grandma and Carol, So everybody in their close circle, from everything I could read, was pretty solid. So I'm going to dive into a little bit about how she was found. So it does get a little bit gruesome for those of you who don't like that. That's your warning.
This is your warning from here on forward, because we aren't here to skip over details.
Yeah, this is true. But I will try to provide, before I get into gory details,
Absolutely.
I'll try to provide a little warning so they can turn it off or take a break if they need to.
Or skip forward, whatever.
Yeah, either way. All right, so Beverly was found face down in a pool of blood on the floor so in their room, it was Carol and Beverly, they shared a room. They had 2 twin beds, a nightstand in the middle, and their room was in almost like an attic. So it came down on the sides, and their beds were like under those slanted walls, if that makes sense. So it wasn't in an attic, but that's kind of the feel that their bedroom had. So she was found dead between the 2 beds on the floor. Blood covered the floor, the walls. Splatters were found even on like a throw rug that seemed to be just kind of shoved across the room. And her mattress, sheets, all of that was drenched in blood. There was a 9x5 hole in the slanted wall by her bed. Like somebody had kicked a hole in it or something. There was just a big hole. The nightstand in between the beds and Carol's bed, completely untouched. Nothing on them, nothing to note, they seemed normal. But the furniture otherwise in the room was completely destroyed. Furniture was tossed around the room. There were articles of clothing all over the place. It was a mess.
Not anything that had to do with the sister.
Right, nothing to do with Carol.
Okay.
One source I found said that Beverly's left leg was actually hooked up against her, like, bed frame.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting. She was laid partially on a blanket, and her clothes were mostly removed. So she had, like, a slip that was shoved up, her bra was ripped, her pants were around her ankles, but no sign of... She was a virgin at the time. It was very easy for them to tell, like, nobody had touched her in that manner.
Right.
Some sources say, like, well, it was interrupted by Barbara at the door, or something. I will note, I don't remember the victim's name, but I want to say just years later, another girl, roughly the same age, was found the same way, murdered, and also with clothes off, but...
No signs of rape.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, very interesting, but something to keep of note. So there were 3 pieces of rope also. So there was one around her neck, one around her feet, and then she had like a piece in her hand. A total of 42 stab wounds, and that number, depending on the source, varies a little bit between 39 and 42, but right around there. There were, kind of the big ones to note were about 9 of them were in her back, from her neck to her waist. 12 to her hands that looked like defensive wounds she was trying to stop. 2 on her face, and so on her left side, she was slashed from her ear to her chin, and then on the right side from her ear to the base of her throat. So, weird stab wounds, but those 2 were of note. The coroner actually says that the killer severed all vessels. Like, he or she, whoever they were, they messed her up. Most stab wounds were generally in groups of 3, and they were about 2 to 3 inches deep. So it was assumed that the knife was probably about 3 to 5 inches, very sharp, but they never located the murder weapon. Now, it's of note that they did find the letter opener, and it was untouched. Okay. There was nothing of note to that. So I had mentioned there was a rope around Beverly's neck, and it was determined that her cause of death was actually strangulation. It was not from the stab wounds.
Do we know if those were done before she died?
It appears that they were probably done either during or after, because the rope on her neck was actually cut as if one of the stabbings caused it to be cut open. There's no DNA under her fingernails. There were 12 fingerprints located and some bloody palm prints found as well, and that number varies about how many there were, but all but 3 of them were eliminated as her own. So there were only 3 handprints in there, bloody handprints, that were not hers. The only thing missing from her house, do you want to take a guess as to what it was? One thing that they took. And I mentioned it much earlier, but...
Is it the necklace?
Nope.
There's also some, like, the bracelet and ring, and then the costume jewelry.
Nope. None of those. I will say, I think it's before you guys started writing, maybe, or very early on that I mentioned it. Something that maybe her secrets could have been in.
Her journal.
Her diary. So her journal was still at the house. Her poetry journal was still at home. But yeah, her diary was the only thing missing. So police came to investigate. They eventually bring in a police dog. And this dog tracks the scent from Beverly's bedroom out the back door near that dining room table that's never opened. And across the backyard into the backyard of a neighbor behind Beverly's property. And then... which is kind of interesting, right? Because we found out some interesting things about that neighbor. But into that neighbor's property, and then eventually ended on the next street over, where footprints were found in a patch of sand just kind of by the curb. So it's assumed that whoever the murderer was hopped in a car at that street there. Yeah. So then the police go in, they search the house, search the yard for any clues.
Nice.
The only evidence they could find was a clump of her hair that was in a bush outside the house. That's all they could really find.
A clump of hair that far away from her body? But there's a giant chunk of hair.
The killer left out that back door.
Right.
So whether he or she had the hair with them, dropped it outside, I don't know. But that was like the only thing of note.
Cold case.
No.
We'll get there. No, we're going to get there. I just am struggling with words. Okay. And then, of course, they had the rope that was used to tie her up and strangle her. This was, unfortunately, a really popular kind of rope. So, something a lot of people in the area used to tie up their bushes.
Yeah.
And so it was found in several of the yards in the neighboring area, like to tie bushes up. So they couldn't really trace it down to one person right away.
Okay.
Now, to determine approximate time of murder, they used the digestion of Beverly's lunch because Grandma had a very specific time that she fed them, and she knew exactly what she had had. With that, it was found that the murder had to have occurred between 1:28 and 2:15, which is precisely when Barbara was at the house. So it happened literally while she was probably standing out front.
Okay.
The pathologist states that whoever did murder her they would have left with blood and plaster because that wall was kicked in.
Right.
So they would have left a complete mess. And going through the neighboring yards and going toward the street.
Someone would have seen it.
How were they
You can't miss that.
not immediately identified? And again, these houses were all very close. So, this person ran through backyards and was never spotted was kind of interesting, too.
So he had to have cleaned up. I feel like that's
Either cleaned up or been somebody that people were really comfortable with being near them.
Mm-hmm. So I have some additional information about some of our little suitors and suspects that could potentially be, but do you guys want to take any guesses? Or if you want to ask questions.
So I would have to assume it's somebody that people are comfortable being around the neighborhood. Somebody that they see often. So my first instinct would be one of the neighbors. One of these two.
During all of the time where, things were getting dropped off at the door, do we have any information on where these two people were, Bruce and John?
No, because it's not really pinpointed as to when that that jewelry was left.
They were both creepy, too.
They're both so creepy.
So just to clarify for those of you listening or watching, they're talking about Bruce and John, who were the neighbors that had admitted to, wanting to see her naked or watching her sunbathe.
I wrote went to house to see her naked. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, let's start with this information.
Yeah,
we've
give
got
us
for
information.
All right, so Stanley, really all we have is that he was interviewed by the police. They didn't give us a whole lot more on that. Actually, I might have more for you. Hold on. John did have a lie detector test. It was inconclusive. I wanted to see, though, really quick, actually, before I dive in any further. I mentioned a name earlier. Somebody that had called the house said that they were going to call back later. They were calling for Dad.
Steve Stankiewicz.
Yeah.
I got that one.
You did. I watched you write that, and I was like, good.
This is not a confirmed identity. Nobody could find anybody with that name.
Dad doesn't know this man.
No.
I was about to say, do we know if he, ever called him back?
Nope. No calls
It
back.
sounds like a fake name.
This is a fake name. They could never identify this person, and the name that was given was not in the system through any of their investigations that they did. And again, they're still investigating this. Oh shoot. I just messed up.
I knew it!
I need to write myself
You're
notes
so
throughout my notes to
Don't
don't
give
say.
it away. Don't give it away.
And I need to be better about he, she, because I noticed a couple of times I said he and was like, oof.
I know,
I
I
don't
heard
know what
you
the
say
gender
that,
was.
and I was like...
Okay, well, sorry, guys. Yes, this is a cold case, so I'm going to dive in now to what we do know, and I want you guys to see if you can try to place anything together, because they haven't been able to.
Is this, one of the things where they know who it is, or they're pretty sure, but they can't pin it?
Okay, so I'm going to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, stop asking questions.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. That's what we want. But,
Coffee.
so in terms of Steve Stankiewicz in particular, again, they're still investigating. They could never confirm this identity. The note that was written by Beverly, again, I had mentioned that it had the words called and later underlined, which seems...
I did that too.
It seems kind of strange, right? Why?
Right.
When that's pretty much all the letter was, or all the note was.
I mean, I could kind of see it, because I feel like in a time like that, people, normal people who are calling for specific people, and someone else, I feel like you'd know that, so she probably was like, never heard this.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
And she was always like cautious and she was scared of everything, so maybe that's what that was.
Yeah. So we'll touch a little bit on Roger. So this was her current boyfriend again. The police focused on him first, which is pretty common, yeah. So he was actually said to be homesick the day of the murder. Did he have an alibi? No. He didn't.
Nobody saw him homesick?
Nope.
Did he not live with parents or anything?
This was a weekday. The kids were all on Christmas break, and most of them were left home alone at this
How
time.
old are they?
So she was 16, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's somewhere around there. Otherwise,
Probably.
Really weird.
I think they were roughly the same age. So he did take lie detector tests. The first one was inconclusive, and the second one he passed. And apparently, they didn't realize back then that these were as shoddy as they are.
Hot dog in a trench coat!
Because they pretty much let people off with these past lie detector tests.
So what would they do with the inconclusive ones?
Nothing, really, from what I could tell.
Okay.
So one source had said that Roger called the police each year following Beverly's death for an update on the case. But I did see some other sources, actually, who had mentioned that the detective on the case was sure he knew who it was.
Ooh.
And called them every day on the anniversary of her death until that human started calling him back every day on the anniversary of. So, like, he no longer had to call them because they called him instead. But he was essentially taunting them to try to get a confession out of them every year on the anniversary. We don't know who because he passed away without telling anybody who he thought it was.
I hate it!
The question is, could it have been Roger? Because there are records that Roger spoke to the detective every year on the anniversary of the death to get an update.
But you said that he called each year. So if he started this, then it couldn't be him because you're saying the cops started that.
But again, the sources are a little bit different. Depends on which one you look at. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. I will say that Roger, like, peaced out in 2005 and went to Israel.
Bye.
Kind of just up and left.
What?
She does have a memorial page that's up, still running. Daniel, her ex-boyfriend, is the one that keeps that up and running. He leaves very thoughtful notes on this memorial page. Roger has not left anything on her memorial page. Refuses to talk to anybody about the murder. Will not do interviews. Will not do.
Roger.
I don't either.
Yeah, he won't talk to anybody. And then again, he kind of just up and left, so they can't get a hold of him anymore. Funny thing about Daniel is he was actually considered like the bad boy ex or the greaser kind of boyfriend. He was working at the time of the murder. He produced a time card to prove it, but his neighbor says that they saw Daniel arrive home in a hurry. And they're not sure why, but he just kind of ran home. And they didn't give us a time for that either, but that was interesting. So anyway, Daniel is the one that leaves those messages on her memorial page. He pays to keep it updated, ad-free, cleaned up, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we had a few other people that I want to note here that I haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
The first one was Harry Joseph Maydall. He was a neighbor. He moved in pretty close by, just a few months before the murder. He actually had a very long record of violence, starting from the age of 2.
Oh.
This person actually admitted to killing Beverly, then recanted his confession.
Mm-hmm.
His lie detector test was inconclusive. Fingerprints were inconclusive. But the details that he provided didn't really match up to the actual events of the case. So they were like, you might be confessing, but you don't actually know what happened. He was known to use aliases just over the years. He had different names. Even if he could have called and been that Steve Stinkowitz, because he was known for using different names, how, like, the questions that come up are like, how would he have known that she was alone? How did he know what her plans were?
Well, you said he was a neighbor, right? He could just
nearby, not right close though.
But if he
not
was
like right next door,
watching her, like a secret admirer might have.
Yeah, it's totally possible. And knowing that like mom and dad left that morning.
Goldberg.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, but oh, you know, I do know how far away he was. So if this person called, and of course they didn't have like cell phones back then, right? Like you had to be home using your landline or at somebody's home using a landline to call. So Steve Sinkwitz called it 1:15, but he lived a mile and a half, approximately, from Beverly's house. So the question becomes then, he would have had to call, speak to her, right? Because then she says, then Dad's not here.
Right.
But then he would have had to walk a mile and a half in 10 minutes and commit.
That
Do we know
crazy
if he was just a track star in high school?
Oh,
We don't know. He wasn't living in the area when this like secret admirer stuff started, so that's another kind of like, where would he have come from?
He
Where
could have
did he
heard
go?
about it
Where
and
did he
took
come from?
advantage of it, though.
Yeah, he could have kind of used it as.
I've been married a long time ago. Where did you go? Sorry.
That's vocal stimming.
The weird thing about him, though, is that he was arrested in that following January, and he had 3 healing cuts on his wrist and his face
When was
that
this?
nobody knew where they came from.
Wouldn't he have had more?
I mean, not necessarily if
How big
he
was
was
he?
able to overpower her, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't
Fair.
know. But he also did not have an alibi for the day of the murder. Alibi less.
Do we know how
Alright.
tall and like how small she was? Or how big she was?
I think she was pretty petite. We have another neighbor. His name was Michael Lindley Bain. He completed suicide at the age of 17, only 2 weeks after Beverly was murdered. A lot of people, of course, thought, oh, yep, he did it because he was guilty and he couldn't live with himself with that guilt anymore. The weird thing is they investigated this, police did, and they found a photo in his room with just, quote, Bev, B-E-V. That's it,
Okay.
on the photo.
Well, that was one of the notes.
I have
on
another
the
question.
presents.
That was one
too
of the
bad.
notes.
Did they compare the handwriting?
Not that I saw. They ruled him out, and I'll tell you why. but
Shoddy
what's your
police
question?
work!
Do we have any record of mental illness? It was.
Of this person specifically, yes. There
Okay.
is record of mental illness. He was
Like-
very depressed.
Just depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I say that like it's like just.
I know.
It's.
But more than that, I don't remember, if I'm being honest. I didn't write it down.
Okay.
But I do know that there was mental illness. He was visibly depressed and
Okay.
very down kind of
Okay.
person. So they found this photo. But then they took it to like her friends and family and was like, is this her? Because they thought, this is it, right? We found our person. The photo wasn't of her.
So just a photo of a random girl with the name Bev written.
Yep, they never confirmed who this person was or if it had any link to her, but they decided it wasn't him because the picture wasn't her.
That's not adequate at
That's
all.
Not
Yeah.
valid.
That at least compare the handwriting.
I know.
Who
But-
are you?
It's funny too because like handwriting specialists look at her notes,
Yeah.
but all the other stuff we have in handwriting was never mentioned. in
I
any of
have
this.
another question
Mhm.
that goes back a little bit. Did they check all the handwriting in the poem journal? That's what was left, right? Not her diary,
Right.
but yeah. Was there like any other person's writing?
No.
Okay.
And I will tell you this. In 2016, her sister actually had that journal published for her. And this was before Mom passed away, and so she presented it like a gift to Mom, this published journal of her poems. And this shout out is available on Amazon. And I was so interested.
We should get one.
Yeah, I think we should. So, we also had somebody named William Rahard. Pronunciation, I don't know. William Rehard? R-E-H-A-R-D. He was actually in prison, but in 1965, he told Detective Farini, who was one of the detectives on the case, that he killed Beverly.
But he was in prison when that happened.
He's in prison now. I guess he must not have been then. It must have been shortly thereafter, but he was in prison for other things. He was an accused kidnapper,
Oh.
but he told detectives where to find the murder weapon.
Did they try?
I'm assuming they probably did, but
I think I'm going to get into that. So he passed away in 94. He told the family about the confession. His son, George Pelota, is now, like, he's trying to raise awareness of the confession that his dad made, saying, like, this needs to be looked into more. Like, he
Period.
had more behind it. But the detective says that he found a butcher's trimming knife, some of Beverly's clothes, in a locker at this train station. And that was what Rahard had told him, like, this is the murder weapon, this is where you find it. So he went, found these things in the locker at the train station, handed it over to the police.
It got lost.
It was destroyed. The evidence was destroyed.
How?
I don't know.
Was it...
And then before he could be questioned any further,
He
died.
died.
he killed himself
Of course he did. Why wouldn't he?
in jail.
I don't like Ohio police right now. They're
Yep.
stupid as fuck.
There's somebody else I wanted to mention too that really kind of caught my attention. So on her memorial page, as you go through and you look at all the posts and all of the stuff from her loved ones, there's somebody on there that posts a lot, and his name is William Burr. And I can't find anything on this man. Nothing. There's no mention, but he posts often on her memorial page.
That's sus.
Super, right?
Sus is-
I can't find anything on him though. So then we also have 2 weeks after the murder, a 17-year-old door-to-door salesman who was arrested for stabbing somebody when she answered the door. Police say they were going to interview him, but nothing has come of it. There's nothing else on it. They were like, yeah, we're going to look at that, and then
They never did.
yeah.
So,
I just wrote murder.
Murder.
Was this town ever, like, said it was, like, safe or anything? Because they better not. Because it doesn't sound very
I
safe.
don't know. There were the detectives throughout the years had like just piles and piles of suspects that most of them, this is the really aggravating part, they haven't shared. Because, right, like you can't share everything, otherwise people will run with it and give false...
Close to the chest. Okay, except for you haven't figured anything out.
In 60 years. Her 60-year death anniversary was December that passed.
Sorry.
recently.
Are you trying to tell me that 1960 what?
4 was 60 years ago.
That's...
61
I don't
almost.
claim that. I don't claim that.
Yep. And they still are keeping like, oh yeah, we have all these suspects and we have all these people of interest, but like, we're not going to tell you about them because we think we're onto something.
But they're not on to something.
How long have you been on to something?
Yeah.
But
Good
the
question.
but that one detective is sure he knows who did it?
But he's dead.
The detective is.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Wait, the detective's dead?
Yeah, the detective that said that he was pretty sure he knew who did it and was trying to prove it and called that person every day on the anniversary of her death. Yeah, he passed away with that knowledge in his head and never let it out.
That is...
Uh-huh.
Yeah, pretty much.
You guys want to know where the family's at now?
Yes, of course.
Do you have anything else that you want to add before we do that?
So who are these random men?
Who's who?
There's that random man that was standing in their yard. Dad tried to chase him away, couldn't catch him. Then there's the tall, angry man in the museum. Do we
Is
know
that
if
the
they're the
same
same person? Because was the man in the yard tall and angry looking?
I think from what I caught, like, Dad couldn't see him very well. It was...
Well, he could have seen how tall he was.
I'm
Obviously,
not
if you
sure.
can see somebody's in your yard, you can at least see their silhouette.
I am so bad at that, though. I'd see someone and be like, yeah, they're taller than me. And
Most
that's not
people
saying
are.
much. Yeah, I'm short. I do have a question.
Okay.
So, it's gonna be kind of a long-parted question. So, that Michael guy didn't have any connection to her, except for the name, right? Like, they never met?
He was a neighbor. A few
Yeah,
houses down.
and it
Yeah.
wasn't really specified what their relationship was like. It
Okay.
was-
Do any of these three violent weirdos...
William
have-
1, William 2, and then Delivery Boy.
Do they have any, like, did they know her at all? Or, like, did
Well,
they
see, but
meet?
remember William that posts a lot? We don't know anything about him.
Yeah, oh, I didn't mean that one. I meant,
Oh, you meant Michael?
I meant the violent weird ones.
Oh, Harry.
yeah.
Harry, William 1, and then Delivery Boy.
So Harriet was kind of found because of how, like, weird his accounts were, was, like, he was just somebody who was violent and wanted to take credit for it kind of thing. He didn't have any actual information. The one that ended up being a kidnapper and ended up in prison, I couldn't really find much on, like, if they knew each other. From my understanding, though, it would have just been kind of a random thing. Like, I think that in reality it was obvious, like, that she was a 16-year-old that came home alone, you know? Parents were at work. Again, this was Christmas break, so it's like, and it was normal in these days.
Do we know if, because, like, sometimes they can, like, just come up with a theory. Like, do we know if they think she personally knew him?
I don't know.
No. Damn.
I know, this one was kind of, like I said, it was
You know who I'm mad at?
sparse.
Barbara. If
Ooh.
I hear a loud thud come from my friend's house when I'm trying to
Yeah.
get in, I'm doing everything I can to get
Well,
into that
and you
house.
think that she's mad at you, but I feel like that's a weird like, because from what it sounds like, she's a really nice person.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't sound like she just gets angry easily.
So, like, if she was mad at you, I feel like maybe she wouldn't be destroying stuff. Because
Oh my god, plot twist, what if... Speculation, warning. What if it was Stanley and Barb helped him? Just kidding.
So,
I doubt it.
Barb actually received, like, a lot of hate.
As she should. You're a crappy friend, bro. Like, that's not how you handle that.
Yeah, no, in the way of, most people think she did it.
Period.
honestly,
no, like,
I was
that
actually
wouldn't
about to say
surprise
that,
me.
because
I don't think she could have done it alone, though.
I
I
don't
doubt
either.
she's much
Most
bigger.
of the stab
than-
wounds were in locations that are easy to plunge a knife into. I found that. There was,
But
like...
with the lack of, like...
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to know the sizes of these people.
The amount of times that anybody was able to get
She'd get
a knife
tired.
in there, you have to be strong enough to overpower that person and make sure that they
Yeah.
stay
Well,
down.
you
to
also
get
need
that
to have
many
the
in.
energy for that, because that's going to expel 39 to 42 is a
yeah.
lot.
Unless you're able to incapacitate them with that first stab,
That is
and then
true.
everything from there is easy. But the reality is, it does appear that a struggle happened, right? Because, like,
It's
I mean...
also, you said strangulation was her
yeah.
death, right? So,
But that doesn't mean she
strangulation
wasn't
takes-
hurt before that.
That's fair, but strangulation takes a lot of strength. A lot of it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to say. My thought was, like, how wild that she was there literally through that entire time
And
and
that's
never saw
probably-
anybody go in or out.
Well, and that's
And also didn't call the police.
Well, she doesn't have cell phones back then. There was
Go
no way
home
for
and
her-
call the cops, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't do anything.
like, she should have at least had a wellness check.
Yeah.
Or welfare.
So, yeah, it's... I don't know.
Well, she's also, because that's probably when she was getting killed, so, like, coinkity?
That's exactly when she was getting
That's
killed.
exactly when she was
Time
getting
of
killed. Is when she was there.
approximate time of murder was 1:28 to 2:15, and that is when Barb was outside.
Yep.
So,
Like, she was picked up by... Well, she had arrived home by 2. So she was there.
so...
And when she showed up, one of the doors was ajar. But when Dad came home,
All of them were.
2 of the doors were open with the storm doors locked. Which means that whoever...
Because the storm door was open when Barb was there.
Storm door on the side of the house was locked, but the door was ajar. So the wooden door itself was, like, open a little bit, but, like, the storm door or the screen door outside
So I
of that
heard
was
you
locked
say
up.
stormed around the house and wrote down storm door.
So, I forgot again. Did it say when she got there? What time Barb got there?
She would have arrived probably somewhere around 1:40, 1:45. She was slightly
because
late.
you said she left her grandma's at 12:15 and she was dropped off around 12:30,
Oh, sorry, I
and
thought
then
she
she
meant
was
Barbara.
getting... Barbara. Are you talking about Barbara?
Yeah, the friend.
Sorry.
Yeah, she supposedly she arrived about 1:40, 1:45.
I want to say, because she's there as it's happening, like, such a coincidence. And did anyone see her, like, there? Like, did they see her go in or out of the house or even show up?
Nobody sees shit for this case.
So,
Only the lady watching outside in the morning.
I think that might just be a little bit of a coincidence, but at the same time, I feel like that's not enough time to cause that much damage, strangle, and stab.
Right, because it's only really about 20 minutes. She
Yeah.
had to knock. She was knocking on the door. She also had to walk to the gas station, get a ride home from Homeboy.
And then I also
And-
feel like
But
that person
also-
had to have cleaned up before they left, like cleaned themselves up.
So then the other
Timeline-
question...
Wait, but timeline though. Remember, as she was getting off the phone with Grandma, she says Barb is here.
Yeah.
And then, sure as shit, we hear Barb is there. So,
But that was
here's
about
my thing.
10 or 15
What
minutes
if-
earlier.
Barb was there, and let whoever did it in.
That
Yeah.
could be.
Or some people say Gary helped and he was actually the getaway car. So the guy that picked her up at the gas station down the street.
Somewhere. Gary G picked up by him.
Okay.
That he ultimately helped her and then they took his car
Okay.
from there because she was dropped off by Gary at
But,
home
like-
at 2.
What does Gary G have to do with Bev?
I don't know. I don't know.
This is
That's
the
just
thing.
one of the
Nobody knows
things.
anything about this case because the stupid cop died and didn't tell anyone.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go into kind of where the family's at now.
Okay.
I feel like we're kind of where everybody else is at. What we've said is a lot of what is out there. There are of course some other like guesses and stuff, but it's one of them was like saying that the girls didn't actually plan to go shopping. The word around the school was that they had planned a trip out of town and Gary was supposed to be driving them all. And like there was this whole elaborate scheme of how they were lying to their parents and stuff, but in reality, like these people are 60, 70, 80 years old by this point. And so to say that like there was a rumor around school 80 years ago or I guess 60 years ago, sorry, was kind of like, how do you know these things though? Like how do you know what the rumor around school was, or how do you know what their plans actually were? Because he was like, you're telling me, 3 girls, 16 years old, on vacation for Christmas are just gonna like hang out with each other? And a lot of people were like, yeah,
Yeah, like, hi.
like
I
we
would
sit
do
in our
that.
bedrooms all week. I don't know. But so there was some of that saying like that this was all fabricated to get them to stay out of trouble, but in reality they had far more extravagant plans for their adventure, because it said that they were all very adventurous and they were all kind of, but from everything that I could find, it seemed like she wasn't much of a she wasn't like a naughty kid. She didn't go out
Right.
drinking and she wasn't lying to her parents. Like she was very much so a busy person, and she went to school and she helped out at the hospital and she did her poetry and she liked Shakespeare and she was just very like, yeah, smart, laid back kind of.
Good kid.
Okay, so I'm thinking about it, and that's definitely, I feel like that's just straight up crime of passion. So it's like, I feel like the person who killed her had to have known her and not liked her. Like, I don't know why, but I can't get off of Roger right now.
I don't know about crime of passion. I know they
No.
were probably very angry, but this definitely could have been something that was planned. With
See,
like
now-
all the rope and everything.
I
A
mean-
lot of people are kind of like, well, Roger, why wouldn't he have killed her when they were driving by themselves the night before? Her parents were
Well, because
hosting a Christmas
everybody knows where
party.
she is, and she's with him.
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are
I
too
know.
many suspects in this one. This one has me like, I think everybody's suspicious, and you just never know. You just never know anybody.
is.
Okay. I'll tell you a little bit about the family. So, kind of a fun fact: they actually had a winter formal that during that Christmas break, just 2 days after, her murder. She was supposed to go with Roger to that. I don't know what importance that has, but that's something that I found, so that was interesting. Mom and Dad actually continued to live in this house. They couldn't speak of the murder, like it was too hard, it caused too many emotions. But I will say, Eleanor ultimately left Ted in 1980 just due to the strain of having lost a child. He refused to change anything about the house because he was like, well, what if they come back to investigate? Like, I can't touch anything because what if they need it?
Right.
But Eleanor and Carol are also living in this house where she was murdered, and that's Carol's bedroom. So it became a lot. And Eleanor divorced Ted in 1980. She passed away in 2018, never knowing who killed her daughter. Ted lived in that house, again, as it was, until he died, just hoping that somebody would come by and investigate the crime again. He passed away in 2012, again, not knowing who killed his daughter. Carol is still alive today. She's actually continuously working on the investigation with police officers. And whenever we have one, like, investigator that passes away, they have somebody else that comes in and takes over the case. They're still actively looking into it.
Good.
Weird thing, though, 7 years after the murder, so they were all still living in the home, somebody breaks in. There's only 3 items that this person was interested in. 2 of Beverly's favorite paintings were hanging up on the wall. They were ripped down and the backs were torn off, almost like they were looking for something. And then they took a gold watch. And they have no idea, like, what the motive of this was, who it was that broke in. They, again, never solved that case either. But yeah, interesting kind of turn of events. How many years later, and they're like, somebody is back at this house trying to find something, and they have no idea what it is. And Ted got a lot of hate for like living in that house and putting his family through that. But as a dad, like having lost your daughter, you know, it's like
right. You have to understand like where he's coming from. If
Right.
if
I could
you're
get that,
hopeful
too.
that somebody's gonna come back and like try and find something else.
But that is also a lot of trauma for the other two.
It is.
It's just people react differently after.
Yeah, you never know how you're gonna react in a situation like that.
That's sad.
So yeah, that's Beverly Jarosz. Okay.
Yay!
Yay!
We did it! Thank you, and goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.